Hello. Today we're going to talk about using Zoom and creating your Zoom settings so that it'll propagate down to your Canvas Zoom app as well as, or your Canvas Zoom link as well as the Zoom app on your computer. We've been getting a lot of questions about how to turn on certain settings using Zoom, and there's been a little bit of confusion. So I think the easiest way to set up your Zoom settings is to go into a browser and type in zoom.us. And once you're here, if you've already got a Zoom account set up, you'll click sign in. And if you have a Ferris license, you'll type in your short ID, John's 42 is mine, at ferris.edu. This is the same way you log into your Ferris Outlook email using the full short ID at ferris.edu address. If you do not have a Ferris account, please contact eLearning at ferris.edu, or you can call eLearning at 231-591-2802. So once I log in, if you want to make sure that you're using the Ferris license, if you hover on the little face in the upper right corner and click on it, I can see that John's 42 at ferris.edu is licensed. So now let's talk about settings in Canvas. Whether you use the app or whether you use the Zoom link, I just said Canvas. Let's talk about setting up the settings in Zoom. Whether you use the Zoom app or you're using the Zoom link in Canvas, the settings that you use here will propagate to any of those tools. Under settings, we have 3 tabs. You can set up your telephone settings, your recording settings, how recordings work, or meeting settings. Some of the items under meeting settings that people have asked about, I'll go over. I'm scrolling down, and if you watch my scrolly bar on the right, you can see that there's a lot of settings here. I've got a long ways to go before that little scrolly bar gets down to the bottom. So I'm only going to talk about a few of these settings, but there are a lot of things that you could turn on or turn off. But one thing I wanted you to note is that you can turn on polling. And what it'll do is add a little icon on the bottom of your Zoom bar, which I'll show you in a minute, that allows you to start a poll. There is another one. Since I don't want to keep scrolling and look for it, I'm going to press Control F on my keyboard, and it'll put me down here to the Find. Breakout groups. So if I type in break, it drops me down to breakout groups, and so you can see I have that turned on. If you are teaching a class and you want to be able to assign people to a certain breakout group, you might want to click this to turn it on, and I'll save that. And a third thing people have asked about is the ability to designate someone else to do the scheduling for you. So let's see if I can find that here. It's called a schedule privilege. If you want to assign someone your Zoom account to schedule meetings on your behalf, you would go down to schedule privilege and click the plus. The gotcha here is that the person that you're adding would have to have a Ferris licensed account. So if it doesn't work for you, or you might want to ask the person if they have a Ferris Zoom account, but you can type in their login ID, and now you can see Donna has a privilege to schedule meetings for me. So all you have to do is click the plus to add a schedule privilege. To remove the schedule privilege, you see the 3 little dots there. You can hardly see them, they're tiny. And if I get my mouse just right, I can click on that and remove schedule privileging. So that's settings in Zoom. Again, there's a lot of settings that you could look at, and once you're done, you can save well, I think it saves automatically. So once you're done, the next thing you might want to do is go to your Canvas course. If you go into a Canvas course, on the left menu, there's a link called Zoom. Your Zoom link might be all the way at the bottom of this menu, so If you want it to be up a little bit higher, you'll have to go into settings, navigation to move it up. Just make sure that you click save at the bottom of the screen in order for your changes to work. So when you're in Canvas, if you go into Zoom, it should look like this, where you see Zoom. If you get an error, it's because you don't have an account set up in Zoom with your short ID at ferris.edu. If you do have an account with your short ID at ferris.edu, contact eLearning, because we probably don't have your account set up right. We need to make sure your default is the short ID at ferris.edu. So we can fix that. So if you're getting an error here, contact eLearning at ferris.edu or by phone at 231-591-2802. So if you were to schedule a meeting, you can see I have some scheduled, I have some previous meetings, and if I was to record a meeting, a live meeting, they would show up here. The recordings would show up here. But if you were to schedule a meeting, you would give it a name. Maybe I'm doing a hybrid class and I want to meet synchronously, so we'll call it Tuesday class 9 o'clock. Okay, and perhaps I want it to be a recurring meeting because it's every Tuesday. So I'll say it recurs weekly. I'll start it out next Tuesday the 9th at, I said 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, make sure it's AM. And it's only a 1 hour lecture. Or maybe, we'll do it 1 hour and 30 minutes, hour and a half lecture. Okay, so it's going to recur weekly. I want it to recur every Tuesday, not Thursday. And we're going to end, by, I'll say after 15, I think there's 15, after 15 occurrences. That's a full semester. One thing you might consider doing is if you plan on recording all of your lectures but don't want to deal with it, if you check this box, it'll start the recording automatically for you, and you'll want it to record in the cloud in order for it to show on that tab when the students are in Zoom. Another thing you might consider doing is having a waiting room, or you might uncheck that for students to just get in and just be there. The waiting room, what that means for you is that you're going to have to hit admit, admit, admit on everybody who tries to join your meeting. So you may want to uncheck that. If it's virtual office hours, you may want to leave it turned on. And perhaps one thing you might want to do is have your students muted when they join the meeting. So if I go ahead and hit save, it's at the start meeting area. So I'm just going to go back to Zoom so you can see how it looks on the screen. You can see all my Tuesday classes are out here. So what I'll do is on Tuesday, June 9th, as an instructor, is that right? Yeah. No. On Tuesday, June 9th, as the instructor, I would click to start this first class, and we'll be ready to go. The cloud recordings that I turned on here will automatically show up under cloud recordings. So let me start a meeting so we can talk about some of those settings that we turned on earlier. Okay, so when you're in Zoom, let's see if I get this on the screen pretty good for you. You can see up here it's recording automatically. Down here I have a bar, and there's a lot of options. In fact, there's so many options I have a more button to see the rest of the options. If I was to start video, here I am. Here's how I can mute and unmute. Here's where I go to see all the people who's in my meeting, and I can tell if their mics are on or off. I can mute them. I can do a lot of different things. I can mute all. So that participants is a good place for you to go. There's the chat if you have the chat feature turned on. If you have the polling feature turned on, you'll see it here. Since I'm recording, I'm going to go ahead and stop this because I don't need to record. I had the closed caption option turned on. I could turn this on and have a captioner type live while this meeting's going. Under more, here's my breakout rooms because I have so many different options turned on. My breakout rooms is under more. I have it set so I can manually put people in breakout group or breakout rooms. And here's the options that I would have if I had participants. And I would click the button to create breakout rooms. So as you can see, if you go into Zoom, scroll that down. If you go into zoom.us and log into your account, the settings that you set up here will propagate into the settings that you use when you're in Zoom. Okay, so let me close some of these things out. I now want to talk about your meeting. I now want to talk about your Zoom app. So I'm clicking on my Zoom app at the bottom of my bar. If I hit sign in, log in with my short ID, all of the settings that I have, oops, I'm going to type that right. All of the settings that I have set up on zoom.us will also show up on my Zoom app. So I'll hit sign in, and here's the Zoom app that some of you are familiar in looking at. I typically go in through the browser. If I hover on my name here, Jackie Hughes, in the upper right corner, and I click on that, I can see that I'm licensed. That's how you know if you're using the Ferris account. I believe some of the settings that we talked about earlier are up under here too. I just think it's easier to set up under zoom.us. I get a lot of questions about people trying to do things in the Zoom app here. So that's a little bit about using Zoom. And if you have any questions, again, you'll want to contact eLearning at ferris.edu, or you can call us at 231-591-2802.